What's up, Totem Pole Nation, and welcome back to another episode of Lambo and Matt's World of Sports. Today, we are going over who we think are the best fits or even possibilities to be the next head coach for the LA Chargers after their very deservedly so, firing of Brandon Stanley and the GM of the Chargers. We'll get into that. We'll give our opinions and more. Thank you for watching. Thank you to Sideline Sports Network. And if you want some merch to support the boys, TotemPoleNation.com is in the ticker. You can go there. T-shirts, hats, hoodies, bags, cups. It's whatever you need, whatever you want for a good price. Let's get into it.
Chargers fans, I know you've been disappointed. Justin Herbert's out for the season. You have all this talent of wide receiver possession, but on Thursday night was the most pathetic game that I ever watched. I didn't even watch past the second quarter. It was 42-0 at halftime. Then you got whooped 63-21. Ladies and gentlemen, I said this earlier. Brandon Stanley was on the hot seat, and look what happened. He should go back to Division III football. Now, I wasn't the first to say that. Rex Ryan said that, okay? So, what is going on with the Chargers? Okay, they're 5-9. They have 2 more games left to go, obviously. Here's what this really comes down to at the end of the day. The quarterback, Justin Herbert, has great numbers over the past 5 seasons, but the playoff failure that happened last season was kind of part of it. My head coaching candidates are probably Ben Johnson, the OC from the Lions. Look what he's doing with Jared Goff, and Jim Harbaugh. I know Jim Harbaugh has some revenge on the NFL after what the 49ers did to him, so that's a possibility. Bill Belichick, I mean, maybe. We'll see how the Patriots finish the season. He still has a chance. Who are your candidates? Is it these 3 with Belichick, Ben Johnson, and Jim Harbaugh? Or is it somebody outside that you think of? Who are your options if you were the GM of the LA Chargers?
Well, GM's not even hired yet, brother. They need to get a new one of those too. But I will say I agree with the Ben Johnson take. He's definitely on the short list for me of possible replacements. And we've talked about it so many times this year. The defensive coach experiment, if you will, in LA has just not worked for the Chargers. You need an offensive coach, it seems like, with this team in particular, or maybe Staley just wasn't the guy. But I will say Anthony Lynn, before Staley, he was also a defensive coach. Mediocrity. I don't know who the coach was before them, but the Chargers have been what since we've been born? Mediocre, right? It's always the same thing with the Chargers. Super talented offense. They got pieces on defense. Doesn't matter. They're not going to make the playoffs, right? That's just how it was with Phil. And so far with Justin, there hasn't been much success after that. So Ben Johnson, I think, is a good one. Not that this is going to be my favorite, but I do think when you're replacing a head coach, the coordinators are definitely candidates first, like from within. So not that I would trust Kellen with the entirety of my team, but Kellen Moore, I do think, is on that short list of possible replacements for Staley, just because of what he did in Dallas. If his entire career was based on what he did with the Chargers this year as the OC, he'd never work a job in football in his life. So, do I trust it? No. Do I think it's the best route? No. But he's definitely on that list for the Chargers. Let's see. Ben Johnson, Kellen Moore, Bieniemy would be stupid, I think, to not take an interview, at least from the Chargers. Now, my personal belief is that Bieniemy is going to be the head coach of the Commanders next year. I think Ron's on the way out. Who better to put in there than Eric Bieniemy? We've seen what the Chiefs are without him, and then we've seen, obviously, this year a bad record in Washington, but we've seen the offense go from non-existent pretty much in the past few years to not every week, because sometimes they don't show up, right? I'm not saying that they're always good, but I will say that he's definitely a catalyst to more excitement and production on the offensive side of the ball. So I think I would have put his name is slipping me right now. The defensive coordinator for the Lions as well. If we would have seen the improvement we expected this year, that defensive group, you know, the whole coaching staff of the Lions is great. All former players, all guys that are going to get jobs past what they have right now. But I definitely think that, you know, Ben Johnson is one of the leading candidates. Looking from within, Kellen Moore, Bieniemy. I mean, Jim always flirts with the NFL. He always flirts. He's always like, "Oh, I might come back. I might come back." And what better time to come back unless they win a natty this year? What better time to come back than when, you know, your own conference, the Big Ten, isn't really having your back on stuff. So who knows? I don't know if Jim is on that list. I don't know if Bill is either. Okay, let's switch the topic a little bit here. Do you think Bill Belichick is actually going to leave the Patriots this year?
It's scaring me. The reports are false, but it's very, very scaring me right now. Here's why it's scaring me, though. If Robert Kraft says we want to get rid of Belichick, the Patriots would probably never be the same organization again. As far as because they want their people in-house. They're not going to get anybody that's outside. If they get Bill Belichick, it's going to have to be for draft picks. They're going to have to do what they did with John Gruden back in 2002. They're going to have to do what they did to all these other coaches, give them draft picks. Sean Payton as well, yes. So they're going to have to give up some crazy draft picks in order to get Bill Belichick. I think Bill Belichick already is a great defensive head coach. So I think the Chargers defense will be completely straight once he gets there. The reason why I just say Bill Belichick because it kind of just makes sense. I don't know if he will fit anywhere else, or I don't know if he's just going to randomly retire. That's just what comes down to it for me. Maybe Belichick. We'll see how the Patriots finish the rest of the season. I don't believe that he will be let go until something happens. Now, if something happens, I'll be prepared for that. My number one pick that I would choose is Jim Harbaugh, just because of he's been suspended twice. All right. If he wins a national championship, he does have a chance to leave. But also the unfinished business he's been saying for the past couple of years of what happened with his 3-year tenure with the 49ers. You know, he wanted to, you know, basically be the GM, obviously, but that didn't work out as well. I think for what he's done for Michigan, what does he have to prove at Michigan at this point? I mean, 2-3 straight seasons of 12-plus wins. Now, I understand they hadn't won the big game, obviously. They're now committed. They now beat Ohio State 3 years in a row. But thinking this is Jim Harbaugh's best team last season and the year before, especially with his running backs and his quarterbacks, obviously, and his wide receivers. The reason why I say Jim Harbaugh is because what does he have to prove left when Michigan wins a championship or if they lose? 2, I mean, the NCAA is kind of on him, especially with all the allegations and all this other stuff. We're not sure if it's going to be an added suspension on to next year or if something else happens. So I think the Chargers, with what Jim Harbaugh was able to do with the Alex Smith, Colin Kaepernick situation, obviously Colin Kaepernick didn't last long, but I think Jim Harbaugh can elevate Justin Herbert on a different level, and his personality and his defense, they can win very, very quickly like he did with the 49ers. That's why I say Jim Harbaugh. He can win very quickly. You saw how quickly he turned around the 49ers in 1 year as well. 1 year, I think they won a playoff game, and 2 years in a row, straight NFC Championship games. And Jim Harbaugh was the head coach of LA Chargers. Do not be surprised if they somehow make the AFC Championship game in the first year.
All right, so here's another one on the defensive side of the ball. I think he's going to be a head coach somewhere this year. You know, this year is a little different. Normally, I feel like there's 5 or 6 guys that we know for sure are going to get a job next year as a head coach, or at least are in serious consideration. And I feel like this year there's like 3. Like I just don't feel like those numbers are way up there. Now, obviously, whoever wins the Super Bowl, both of those coordinators could be gone just because they won the Super Bowl. You know, like we just saw it with Philly. Obviously, great stats backed by those coordinators, but they don't win the Super Bowl. Who knows if both coaches go to be head coaches, right? But someone that I think is definitely going to be a head coach next year is Dan Quinn, which pains me to say as a Cowboys fan, but I fully believe that he has redeemed himself from the worst Super Bowl loss of all time, you know, with the Falcons. But you also have to take into account that he had an MVP quarterback on that Falcons team. He did lead that Falcons team to playoff success, a Super Bowl appearance. and also being the mastermind of the Legion of Boom, right? So we've seen him every single stop he's been at have a lot of success, and that includes the Cowboys. You know, like the defense for the Cowboys before Dan Quinn was the weak point. We had a damn defensive coordinator who was like 72 years old, running the same shit he was running in the 90s. Like it just wasn't working, right? And our defense was awful for a very long time. I've watched multiple, and this isn't a Cowboys rant, so I won't go too far on it, but I've watched multiple really good Cowboys teams just lose in the playoff. Obviously, I've been hearing this my whole life, but you know, lose when it comes down to it because our defense has folded almost every single time. You think about all the Aaron Rodgers stuff with the Cowboys, that's defensive folding, you know, in the fourth quarter. And since Dan has shown up, this defense has been a top 5 crew in the league. So do I think that he's deserved to get another head coaching job? Absolutely. I don't know if the Chargers are the right place for him, given, you know, the conversation we've had about defensive head coaches with the Chargers as of, you know, the past 7 years or whatever. But I mean, we'll have to see. I do think Dan Quinn, though, will be a head coach somewhere next year.
All right, well, this is it for the LA head coaching candidates. Obviously, we'll see how that goes after the NFL season starts. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Totem Pole Nation, Lambo and Matt Sport Sports. We will catch you later. Thank you.